Today on Commander Replay, we try out this Patreon-submitted Azami Lady of Scrolls deck. Can Firesong and Sunspeaker, Jodah Archmage Eternal, and Anafenza the Foremost deal with the level of savagery that Azami brings? Find out next on Commander Replay. Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have two new Patreon supporters in Zach Ward and Tana Mox. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. Welcome back everyone, playing some Azami Lady of Scrolls. Today's deck list comes to us from Patreon subscriber Matthew, and we'll be taking his Azami deck out for a little spin. I've played a little bit of Mono Blue in the past. I have not played Azami specifically, so this will be interesting for me. We'll see how many mistakes I make in this game. I've played Brawl a little bit, and Brawl is pretty straightforward. Counter anything that matters and play your win condition. Azami will be a little bit more interesting because I'm not used to all the wizard interactions. So yeah, we'll see how well I'm able to play through those. Kept an opening hand that looks like this. Looks pretty good with a Mana Crypt in the opener. No reason to go for the Gilded Drake yet. Don't actually think we need the Mana Crypt this turn just because there's nothing we can cast with it. We could play a turn 1 back to basics. That would be pretty savage. Yeah, I'm gonna skip on the turn 1 back to basics. I am joined today by 3 of my Patreon supporters, and Kithron will be piloting the Firesong and Sunspeaker deck. They played this deck in a video that I filmed the other day, but I'm not sure which of these 2 videos will come out first. This one may come out before the other, but pretty nasty Firesong and Sunspeaker deck. Tons of removal in this thing. Like, the deck is practically all removal, so should actually put up a pretty good fight. Before the game, I did tell everyone to bring their best anti-Azami deck, since I know that Azami is very, very good. And I mean, basically, if you hit Mind Over Matter at any point, the game usually just kind of ends. So, ooh. And for Jodah, a turn 1 Soul Ring followed up with a Sword of the Animist. That seems pretty good. But yeah, avoiding the turn 1 back to basics because I don't want my Patreon supporters to hate me. That's pretty savage. Also, when I told them to bring their best anti-Azami decks, they all seemed like I don't specifically have an anti-Azami deck, so I'll just bring the best thing I have. So it's probably not completely an even playing field, so for that reason, we're not going to do that. But if we're playing like super high-powered Magic or even like CEDH, something like that, I would certainly go for the turn 1 back to basics. Turn 2 Lightning Greaves for the Anafenza, and that'll bring it to our turn 2. There's a Grim Monolith. That seems pretty good. We do want to find another island at some point. Land count is 37 in this deck. Oh, I did make one change, by the way. There were snow-covered lands in this deck, and I switched over to basic islands because snow-covered islands were running almost $2 a pop, and for like 28 of them or whatever the number was, that's going to be kind of expensive. So didn't feel like sinking the cost on that. Especially for something that's such a minute advantage. Like, not saying it does nothing, but it is a very, very small percentage gain that it gets you, and just feeling like it's not really worth the cost right there. So we lay down the Mana Crypt, followed by the Grim Monolith, so we should have plenty of mana next turn. Still a blue short of casting Azami, sadly. Also a blue short of casting Teferi. Opponent's gonna crack the Wayfarer's Bauble. Do we Mystical Tutor? Let's go take a look at the deck list. I did actually take a gander at this deck list before I started playing, which is something that I need to start doing more when I'm playing decks that I haven't built. There is a Bribery in the deck. That's always cool to go for, right? There's plenty of extra turn spells in this deck. Those are kind of sweet. High Tide is a thing we could go for. A Dimir Guildmage coming down for our opponent, and it gets a +1/+1 counter from this Guildmage's Forum. Haven't seen this one. Pay 1, tap it, add 1 mana of any color. If that mana is spent to cast a multicolored creature spell, enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Interesting. There was a commander card like that. What was it? Opal Palace? Is that the one? I tried it out occasionally. I never really found that I ever used it, at least in the decks that I was playing. If you're in a +1/+1 counter theme, it could matter. But for something like Aurelia, that +1/+1 counter never really seemed worth the additional mana cost. So, but yeah, if you're in a +1 counter deck, that could be pretty cool. Ooh, opponent's gonna Putrefy or a Grim Monolith. The Savage. Do I want to use Capsize in that? Not really. Yeah, I think we just let it go. We have the Mana Crypt, so we're still gonna be getting mana. Really like to see an island off the top. Mana Crypt flip on us. Let's go Tails. Won the flip. There's the island. Nice. So I guess we just lay down Azami right here. And try to get down to the... Or do we go Teferi first? Yeah, let's do that. Let's end step Teferi into Azami. I like that line of play better. Crystal Ball coming down for the Fire Song opponent, and a Boros Garrison. Continuing on our opponents, by the way, second opponent is Chaotix 2075, a recent addition to the Patreon supporters, is piloting this Jodah Archmage Eternal deck. Not exactly sure what their deck is up to. Kind of an interesting mix of cards coming down so far with this Dimir Guildmage and the Sword of the Animist. We'll have to keep an eye out. 5-color decks you always have to be a little bit wary of. They could be running any number of things. Looks like they might be on a Guildmage tribal kind of plan. Rakdos Guildmage, Dimir Guildmage, interesting. Gonna put a Sword of the Animist on the Dimir Guildmage, sure. Gonna swing into the Fire Song and Sunspeaker opponent, gonna get that land. Sounds good to me. I'd go for some of those lands. So last night I was actually in a bidding war on eBay on an Altered Art Sword of the Animist, and I ended up losing out. Started getting up around $20, and that started to become a little too rich for my blood, so had to let it go, sadly. So opponent finds a land, and yeah, they got a Soul Ring and an extra land now. That puts them in pretty good shape mana-wise. And they've hit a lot of basics, so they're not even that susceptible to this back to basics. Where the other two players would get hit fairly hard with it. Oh, and then finally, we have Firemaker 282, otherwise known as Ray. I played his Karamitra deck last time out. He's running an Anafenza the Foremost deck, and he said it was basically Anafenza removal, so we'll see how that goes. That could actually be pretty rough for us. There are a lot of counters and things in this deck, but even still, you can only counter so much removal. And here comes a Return to Dust on Sword of the Animist and our Mana Crypt. That's actually going to hurt a bit, but we're going to flash down to Fairy before that goes, and that brings it to our main phase. We draw a Misdirection. That would have been super helpful last turn. Actually, I guess that can't counter a Return to Dust, but question is, now what? May need to do something with this Mystical Tutor at some point. So how does this deck work? Are you supposed to go beat stick with this deck? I don't really know. The answer is probably not. Our creatures do have flash, so we can flash them down whenever we feel like it. And I'm going to go back to looking at this deck list to see what kind of things we can tutor for with that Mystical Tutor. So we got a Bribery, extra turn spell, extra turn spell, extra turn spell, extra turn spell, and a Fabricate. Those are the sorceries in the deck. Instants, we got Capsize, Commandeer, Counterspell, Cyclonic Rift, Forbid, Force of Will, High Tide, Mana Drain, Misdirection, Mystical Tutor, Pact of Negation, Remand, and Spell Crumble. I was actually hoping for like just a straight card draw spell. We're actually in kind of a tough spot now that both of our mana rocks are gone. Temple for the Jodah opponent. They'll get to scry. Jodah coming into play. So opponent goes on the attack, spreads around the two Guild Mages. Gonna play a Swords the Plowshares on our Teferi. I guess that means we Gilded Drake and grab Jodah. We are getting picked apart by removal. We still go beat stick with Jodah, though. Which is probably what I'll end up doing, and it's a wizard. And there's a Wrath of God, so it's not even gonna matter. There's an island off the top. Oh, man. I think now it's back to basics time. So each opponent losing about 3 lands or so, middle opponent losing 2. And this should just buy us incredible amounts of time until someone can find enchantment removal. At least hopefully long enough for us to hit another island and get our commander down before things get out of hand. And I mean, we're in a tough spot now, and it's not because we had a bad hand. It's because opponents are playing some decent decks and have a lot of removal and been picking us apart, so Deathrite Shaman coming down for the Anafenza opponent, and a Sword of Fire and Ice came in for the Jodah opponent last turn. Gonna put the boots on the Deathrite Shaman. This seems pretty good. I mean, if we played the turn 1 back to basics, it would have just gotten hit by that Return to Dust at some point. There's a Walk the Eons. Still a couple lands away from that, so yep. Gonna keep on passing. So I think this deck could probably use 1 draw spell in the instant or sorcery slot for Mystical Tutor. Something as simple as a Concentrate would be super awesome. Dawn of Hope for the Fire Song and Sunspeaker opponent. That is a great addition to the Fire Song deck. Before you were kind of relying on the mercy of finding Well of Lost Dreams, which is a great card. Dawn of Hope now gives you a second opportunity to allow you to turn your life gain into card draw. So, and if you need tokens late in the game, never know when you're going to need some additional blockers. Although one thing I've noticed after seeing cards like Heliod, God of the Sun, and who's it? Does Oketra make tokens too? I think it makes tokens. If you're spending 4 on those tokens, unless you have like unlimited mana, it probably means that your opponents are doing more than you. Like if your opponent's casting some big 6, 7, or 8 mana spell, and all you're doing is making a token or 2. It's not typically a great place to be, but if everyone's out of cards and doesn't have much in play, then certainly those tokens can be very helpful. And I do like that they have lifelink so they can trigger the first ability on that card, but just something to keep in mind when you see those pay 4 for a token kind of cards. Anafenza coming into play, and gonna put some boots on Anafenza. It's got Shroud and Haste. Anafenza comes into us. We draw a Lighthouse Chronologist.
So I guess we play the Lighthouse Chronologist, don't have much else going on. Level up the Lighthouse Chronologist, and level up again. Opponent gonna scry with our Crystal Ball. Yep, I would go for a scry right now. Opponent gonna lay down a Boros Guild Mage. Puts the sword on it, so it's got protection from blue and red. Seems pretty good. Notably, our deck is blue. Here's a tough question. If we draw an extra island, do we cast Azami, or do we level up the Lighthouse Chronologist? I'm guessing casting Azami is probably the correct call, though Azami is an 0/2 and dies to this Fire and Ice, so that's a thing. Opponent says their deck is Guild Mages, Lieges, and Bringers. Sounds sweet. I tried the Bringers deck a while back, and I could not get that working the way I wanted it to. Opponent's going to swing into us for 7. Yep, just going to go ahead and eat all that. Anafenza has now put 2 counters on the Deathrite Shaman from their last 2 attacks, so worth noting. There's a Soul Ring, so let's go Soul Ring, cast Azami. Soul Ring is actually probably not the best right here. Would have preferred an island simply because, based on the way this game's going and based on the decks that we've seen, there's probably more artifact and enchantment removal coming. Opponent's gonna Crystal Ball again. I'm gonna try to dig for some enchantment removal. Wow. Jodah has 5 lands that don't untap from the Back to Basics. That is ridiculous. There's a Sword of Light and Shadow. That's a pretty good one. They'd have 2 creatures in graveyard. That also seems pretty good. We're probably about to lose our Azami. I'm pretty sure we paid 5 mana to draw 1 card. Which, I don't know, seems like the thing that we probably have to do right now. I guess we could have played Walk the Eons last turn. Although we could probably start the turn loop. Opponent coming into us with both swords on the Guild Mage. Yep, can't do much about that. So Light and Shadow and Fire and Ice both trigger. Opponent's going to shoot our Lighthouse Chronologist. It is a 1/3, so it doesn't die immediately. They probably wanted to shoot Azami right there. Either way, we're going to make sure we get the card draw, just in case something unforeseen should happen. Ooh, that's a Pact of Negation. Well, that's a pretty big card draw. Although, without that 5th land, if someone blows up the Soul Ring, Pact of Negation may not be the best idea. Opponent doesn't have any mana, so unless they have like a Gut Shot, which is pretty janky. Doesn't seem like you would run that in Commander, but yeah, so I think opponent forgetting that sword only does 2 and that the Chronologist has 3 toughness. Opponent asking if the 2 damage is a misclick. That's actually pretty big. The fact that we don't have to recast Azami right now, yeah, they said misclick, is really big, because if we had to tap out 7 more mana to recast Azami, that just leaves us all kinds of open. There's a Farika, God of Affliction. I was reading a Commander article the other day, and it was on EDH Rec. Someone was talking about how, of all the gods, Farika is the only one that really doesn't see any play. So Anafenza going on the attack again, and you can put another counter on that Deathrite Shaman. It's getting pretty big. Coming into us, yep, we're just going to keep on taking that. Life total's starting to get pretty low. 12 commander damage, down to 22. Wow, you can draw with Azami the turn that you cast her? I did not know that. We draw a Palancron, that's a pretty busted card, right? And a Thran Dynamo, also pretty good. I think we start with Walk the Eons, we draw 2 cards, try to hit some lands, and then next turn, yeah, we'll figure it out next turn, and then try to probably get this Lighthouse Chronologist pumped up at some point. So let's go Walk the Eons, targeting us, no buyback, do not have 3 islands that we can be sacrificing at this point in time. Get down to the card drawing, there's a Treachery, get down to the card drawing. No islands. Was kind of hoping for the island right there. Misdirection. What do we get rid of? These are all pretty good cards. Can't Treachery that. I think we get, as good as Treachery is, there's not that much worth taking. Deathrite Shaman is okay. Guess it's Treachery. Hey, there's a land. So play a land. We'd still be 1 short on the Lighthouse Chronologist. I was really hoping to make that island last turn, but we did not. I guess we draw a Temporal Manipulation, so we can take another crack at it, right? Riptide Laboratory will not untap during our untap step. Play the Thran Dynamo. Play the Temporal Manipulation. There's a Cyclonic Rift. There's not an island. Oh, man. Yep. Level up the Chronologist. Brings back to our turn. There's a Venser. We have to level that thing up as a sorcery. We should probably play a card. Fate Spinner seems pretty good. I'm actually going to go, you know what, I'm going to level up the Lighthouse guy all the way. Hope it doesn't get blown up by anything. So it is leveled up. Going to sit on our free counter spells. Gonna keep on drawing. It's a 3/5. That can actually block some stuff. Tap Azami. Still trying to hit islands. Not an island. It's an, well, that would have been helpful. Play the Extraplanar Lens. Exile an island. Use the Extraplanar Lens. I'm just going to stay put right there. There's actually a lot of damage on board right now. We need to be careful of that. Venser gives us... Venser doesn't seem the best right here, being that things have Shroud and Pro Blue. Ooh, opponent's gonna Lightning Helix the Azami. I'm gonna play Misdirection on the Lightning Helix. We will discard the... I think the Capsize. Nothing with 3 toughness that we can kill, so we'll shoot the one opponent in the face. Opponent gains some life, but they cannot pay the mana to draw cards. Ooh, that brings it back to our turn? Do we have an extra turn spell that I forgot about or something? Oh, that's... Ooh, I forgot. I forgot that the Lighthouse Chronologist triggers on opponent's end steps. Ooh, that is extremely good. So play this Gilded Lotus. Now we might have it? Probably should have held on to the Capsize because we could have made infinite mana with Palinchron. Oops. Yep, file that in the oopsie category. I guess we Mystical Tutor for a turn spell. Go for this. What do we got? We got Time Warp. Yeah, let's go for the Time Warp. Draw the Time Warp. So we get to take an extra turn. Definitely missed some card draws on the last turn. I didn't completely understand how Lighthouse's ability worked. So there's that. Drop the island. Gonna play this Fate Spinner. Is this all players? At the beginning of each opponent's. Wow, only opponents. That is a good card. Tap this thing. Keep drawing. There's an Ancient Tomb. There's a Remand. Play the Ancient Tomb. I think we have like multiple turns stacked up now. An island. There's an island. 3 islands. So Guild Mage opponent gets a turn. Opponent coming in with the Guild Mage. Yep. I guess we Cyclonic Rift. Lighthouse will trigger. So we get to take a turn. There's a Consecrated Sphinx. Drop an island. Play the Consecrated Sphinx. There's a Mana Vault. There's a Bribery. There's an island. Pass the turn. At this point, I'm basically just looking for the Mind Over Matter. I'm just going to basic land cycle. A Sylvan Redemption. Well, that's frustrating. That does get rid of the Back to Basics, and they could get rid of something like our Extra Planar Lens. We'll get to draw 2 cards. Draw a Rings of Brighthearth and a Nykthos. Silent Gravestone. Cards in graveyards can't be target of spells or abilities, and pay 4, exile it, and all cards from graveyards draw a card. Pretty good. The Chronologist will trigger. Man, that thing is busted. So if I ever see one of these, kill it immediately. Let's play the Nykthos right here. Let's do some card drawing. What's this thing do? Becomes tapped. You may pay 2. If you do, return target permanent to its owner's hand. That seems pretty good. Draw a bunch of lands right there. I'm going to Bribery on the Jodah. Bringer of the Black Dawn. There's the one we want. Play this guy. So Bringer, Mana Vault trigger, not going to pay. And Bringer trigger. This will get our Mind Over Matter. So yeah. So opponent saying GG. Don't need to show them the combo. It takes a lot of clicking to actually make the Mind Over Matter bit happen. Yeah, this deck, we went from having just about nothing really going on to... Then we played that Back to Basics, got the lock, and then from there we just took off. Lighthouse Chronologist, super crazy. We got so many extra turns with that thing. Extra turns are really, really good in Commander. I can't believe how little we had at one point, and then just how we just took off with this deck. It was pretty crazy. So, opponents want a rematch, so we may do that. So I hope to see you guys for Game 2.